Hey everyone, so we're having a chat with Euan Granger today, seasoned procurement professional, and you may also know him from his writing at Procurious. And to kick things off, Euan, can you just tell me a little bit about yourself, how you landed in procurement?
Well, firstly, thanks, Deanna, for having me. If I'm brutally honest, I'm one of those people who fell into procurement as a profession. 15 years ago when I started, it was definitely not the profession that it is now. I ended up on a graduate programme in the UK, having left university, and was faced with the dilemma of whether I wanted to be in sales and business development or procurement. It felt like a better fit for me, and that was where it all started. From there, I went through the graduate programme. I worked for in the defence industry in the UK for a few years, and then moved. We spent a year living in Australia, did some procurement consulting out there with a company called The Faculty, boutique procurement and supply chain focused consultancy, and they have a recruitment side of the business as well. Procurious was a natural kind of fold out from that business, and as I came back to the UK, Procurious was being launched in London, and it seemed like a natural fit at that point. It introduced me to a whole kind of different aspect of procurement, and more people around the country, and more procurement professionals, people with different career stories. Then I felt it was probably high time I got back into operational procurement. Done some public sector work in the UK, and back into manufacturing again, and right now I'm working for Morgan Sindall Construction, working with the teams both on our construction sites and the other kind of supply chain managers around the country, to make sure that we're having good conversations with suppliers and manufacturers. It's a lot about relationship building. The interaction with Procurious and doing a lot of the social media stuff is kind of, I've kept that going, and I still do some writing on the side, and we all collectively try and share the benefits and the wealth of our experience, and whether it's trying to encourage people to get into procurement themselves, or even like just trying to kind of take away the kind of common misconceptions about the profession. It's just such a wide, varied career possibility.
To touch on a few questions on sustainability, because I know you're a big advocate. Now, I read this report by GEP, the Outlook report for 2025, where it says that sustainability is one of the key metrics for procurement to demonstrate success to the board. What are your thoughts on how procurement teams should evolve to meet these expectations while somewhat still balancing traditional KPIs?
I've been advocating for sustainable procurement probably for a good 10 years now, from when sustainability was very much in its infancy. You're right, it's a very tricky balancing act. As much as you would like to push on sustainability, social outcomes, the kind of ESG package as a whole, a lot of the time you end up back round at the conversation of cost, quality, delivery, and that's the traditional metrics. It's what we're still measured on. How can you save money? The balance comes from not doing it in its isolation. Procurement needs to build this in through the whole business, and it's all very well for procurement to push a sustainability agenda and say, right, these are the products you should be buying, this one reduces carbon, let's consider this manufacturing process. Ultimately, people are going to look at that in the business and go, right, well, but how much does that cost? And there's still this notion of sustainability costs more money. Sustainable products have a higher price premium, and I think it's still true to a certain extent. I think the gap is narrowing, but at the same time it does mean that if you've got two figures at the bottom of the page and tight margins, then sustainability is going to naturally be shuffled off to one side and say, right, okay, we can afford to do that next time. Problem is, we're now rapidly getting to the stage where next time just isn't an acceptable timescale to work with. The balance has to come from being able to say, right, this is no longer an option. You will reduce your carbon by X%. You will have a carbon neutral or net zero supply chain. Then it's about building the collective relationships of, let's not just force this on suppliers, manufacturers, contractors, whoever it happens to be. Let's all work together, and we'll establish what we need to do, how we need to do it, and then, yes, if it costs a bit more, we'll work out how to balance that out at the time, and it means that everybody delivers on those sustainability outcomes without anybody being left holding the can at the end of it and being massively out of pocket.
You wrote that you think engaging with social enterprises is an important value add to consider. Can you touch on why you think this is so?
Yeah, absolutely. I think for the most part, the social enterprise spend, if you're looking at delivering social outcomes, community engagement, and sustainability as well, that whole thing ties into developing and leading a more local supply chain. Social enterprises are a huge part of this, and there's so many that do fantastic work around the UK in helping disadvantaged groups and putting people back into the workplace and working with people with disabilities or neurodiversity. And there's ways that they can be engaged, and it might not be working with them in the supply chain, but it might be kind of bringing them into events if you've got like catering companies and things like that as well. It's making people more aware of their existence. Mm-hmm. And that means that you are spending closer to home as well, naturally. And I think that the aim, certainly in the job that I'm doing at the moment, we've got a very good social value team that we work very closely with on the supply chain side to try and find these social enterprises near, and you might be talking within a 5 or 10 mile radius of a site that we're building on, and that's the key, is you're trying to keep the spend as local as possible. And so not only do we get the reduction on, potentially, if it's goods and services, you get the reduction on the sustainability side for the carbon because it's closer, but you're also putting money back into the community, which drives this positive cycle of spend in the local community so they can invest and develop more, and then the business grows, and then hopefully at some point you work with these businesses enough so they're big enough to then actually become an integral part within the supply chain and be a direct contractor to you as well. And the whole kind of ESG and sustainability package needs to include these smaller companies and the social enterprises.
Why do you think, if at all, there is still resistance to digital transformation in procurement?
It's interesting. I had a conversation with a couple of the other change makers when we were at the event in London, and we were talking exactly around this. No matter who we were, there was just this feeling of this resistance to change, and you could get so far, and it was great. You go and speak to these great technology companies, and you look at these solutions, and you go, "This is a great idea. I can mentally apply it to my day job, and this is fantastic. Look how much money look how much time I'm going to take out of the menial stuff that I'm doing day to day." And then you get to the point, you come into the organisation, and you hit this buffer of other stakeholders who haven't had that, whether it's a centralised IT team who are trying to reduce the number of solutions or systems that are being used, or look at it and go, yeah, that's all fine and well, but how do we roll this out across a national enterprise or an international enterprise? Or you go to the finance person and they look at it and go, how much is it going to run us a year? It says, oh, that's a lot of money.
Efficiency, productivity, time saved, those are all things, not necessarily quantifiable at first. It may be a long-term benefit that may realize further down the line. You may prevent risks from materializing further down the line.
You know the positives are there, and like you say, that you can quantify them. They are tangible, but that might not be tangible until 12 months, 24 months, so on. Yeah. So selling that within the business is very challenging. I think as procurement, we're getting there. I think the right people are now bubbling up to the top of the profession, and the people who are open to these conversations. It's how positive or open-minded you can be, and it doesn't really matter whether you're 20, 40 or 70. Like, if you've got an open mind, you'll have these conversations. It just largely depends on your perception of it. And then it's about selling it into the business, and you've got to overcome these speed bumps and the resistance to the change that's going to be put in place. And how you do it it's a challenge to get it done and actually do it. And I think better people than me have been trying with a variety of systems and are still coming up empty. I think we just have to be persistent.
It's the only way you stay competitive. In that same Outlook report, by the way, one of the trends that they see coming up is AI agents. So if 2024 was the year of AI agents, 2025 is the year of the agentic workforce, which is networks of AI agents that would help you do your job better.
There's a certain inevitability about it, and like you say, if you're not getting on board now, then you're going to get left behind, because somebody will. So there will be that tech leader who jumps onto it and says, right, we're gonna take this risk, and if it works, then we're gonna fire way ahead of our competitors.
Now, you said that AI can actually enhance the human factor in procurement. Can you tell me a bit about where you think the opportunities lie when AI and humans work together?
The removal of these horrible, manual, time-consuming processes. Benefit my experience in manufacturing is that you look at the order management and the kind of logistic flow of materials in and out, and you can have an amazing team of professional procurement team like I've had in the past, and they just get bogged down in the day-to-day tasks, and they're on the phone to suppliers saying, right, the order's due on X date, is that still the right date? And then they're updating a system, and then they have to tell the stakeholders who are waiting for it if it is on time, or if it's not on time, why is it not on time. So it's these repetitive tasks and these kind of, like, I suppose, Monday morning tasks, isn't it? You sit down at your computer and you open up and go, right, okay, what do I need? What orders are due in this week? And what are my big deadline, drop dead dates? You want to remove that, because actually the whole idea is that you shouldn't have to spend your time doing this. What you're trying to do is focus on the people side of it. You should be speaking to the suppliers. You shouldn't just be picking up the phone to them to ask them when an order's due. You should be bringing them into the office, or going out to see them, or having a phone call or a Teams meeting or something like that once a quarter to catch up. Right, this is what our plans are. This is what we're looking at forward ahead, forecast planning. This is where we perceive there to be issues. Let's look at the potential risks for the next 12 months together and work out how we're going to plan for this. All of that building up, but you need time to do that, and you need time to plan it, and you might whittle down a supply base of, call it 200, 300, 400 suppliers, and you might only bite off maybe 20 of them, 30 of them, and say, right, these are our strategic suppliers. But for each of them, you need probably a set number of hours a month to manage that relationship properly, and make sure that they're feeling the benefit of the relationship as well. And that doesn't happen if the only conversation that they get with you is on a Monday morning, with you picking up the phone and going, I need to know whether that order's coming in on Thursday morning, like you've promised. Yeah. It's too transactional. AI will enhance procurement, but because procurement is so people-focused, it will never ever replace the human in the chair.
Another line that I got from your articles that I really loved: procurement in title, but purchasing in mindset. Now, what do you think is holding the profession back from being truly strategic, and how do you think organizations can shift the function away from this transactional mindset?
I think, in all honesty, there's probably two forces holding procurement back. One of them is the kind of operational mindset of that kind of traditional KPI setup, that traditional method of cost, quality, and delivery. The other factor holding procurement back is procurement, and getting the change of the mindset has to come from within first. If we're not banging the drum loudly enough to change our role within the organisation, no one's going to do it for us. The organisations recognise that actually they have a procurement function rather than a purchasing function, although they don't necessarily understand what the differences should be. And so you see the names on the door, but actually the mindset and the kind of day-to-day operational side of things is still very much in the old-fashioned sourcing, day-to-day order placement, order management, goods in, goods out, and that's it. There's nothing else built on top of the kind of transactional tasks that we end up doing. So once procurement gets out of its own way, understands actually that, yeah, the transactional is critical, but it makes up such a small percentage of what we could be doing and should be doing. And then you start going, right, okay, how do we then integrate with the rest of the business properly? Are you aligning strategic objectives with the overall business? Who are your key stakeholders in the organisation? Your key internal customers are, well, in different industries, it'll be different departments, but work with them, understanding what you drive for them and how they can help you and how you can help them. That's how you start building this kind of strategic mindset, and you begin to kind of push procurement up into the conversation elsewhere, because nobody's looking at it and going that you're just delivering nuts and bolts onto the shop floor. You just make sure that bricks land on the construction site at the right time. It's yes, that is part of the job, but it's not the whole job. And actually, as you are supposed to look back around to the things like sustainability and the social value, it needs everybody's input to it. But for us to do it properly, we need the time and the resource. And that only comes from having that mindset that says my job is much wider than pushing that button on a purchase order on an online system.
On a more personal note, you've been open about losing your job at one point in your career, and I think it resonated with a lot of people when you shared this. Sometimes the job market can be quite choppy and intimidating and just intense. What lessons did you learn along the way, and how has it shaped how you navigate life and work right now?
It's a bit of a shock to the system to be made redundant. I'd never actually been in that situation myself. It's like you say, the recruitment market is quite choppy. I've spent a lot of time building up a good network over the last 10-15 years, but the point that you turn round to that network and go, help, I need some advice, I need an ear, I need somebody to talk to. I don't need you to give me anything, I just need somebody to be on the end of a phone. And you talk to family, and you talk to people who've been in that situation before, and you talk to people in procurement, and you talk to business mentors, and you talk to guys that you bounce ideas off, and they're all like, you know what, doesn't feel like it now, but it will be for the best in the long run. It's a real, it's a very strong community. It seems to cross borders and boundaries and nationalities without even trying to kind of do that. And everybody seems willing to share, be like, yeah, I've been there, I've done that, this is what I did wrong, so don't do that, do this instead. It is such a great community. I felt it was kind of important that I shared that for other people who were in that position, and that I was surprised about how much of an impact that seemed to make. It helps people to kind of, who might be in the same position, just to do that. I guess the thing is that it's difficult to see the way out when you're in the middle of it, but I suppose my kind of learning from it is it will kind of resolve at some point. So you make the best of the time that you have then, whether that's going out and going to events, whether that's speaking to recruiters, whether that's spending time going to speak to other organisations, or just enjoying a bit of freedom and a bit of life, and that's where I ended up. I got to spend a bit more time with my kids, and it sometimes gets kind of pushed to the margins because of work and everything else. So it was such like valuable quality time that I probably won't ever get the chance to do again. So a huge positive out of it.
Closing question: what excites you most about the future of procurement?
The unknown. There's a lot of stuff that I can see developing in the next year or so, and I think there's a huge amount of like potential for new tech solutions and the industry kind of reshaping how it interacts with the business and the kind of wider world. What I'm most excited about is what we don't know about yet. The possibilities are endless as you kind of look past the next kind of 12 to 18 months, and you look at it and you think, right, okay, the big headlines might be sustainability, it might be global supply chain, it might be social value, but actually it's everything that sits under that. We don't know what that looks like yet, and it shifts so frequently because of geopolitical, different people in power in different countries, different the way the general elections fall or national elections fall can shift the balance. The most exciting thing is how procurement then adapts and evolves to kind of manage what comes next. Change is always hard, but if you can kind of get your head around that, then actually can be quite exciting at the same time. The most exciting thing is what's coming. even if you don't know what that looks like.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your insights and your thoughts and taking the time today,
No,
Euan.
not at all.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. It's been really good.
Brilliant.